My name is Sophia Carter. I'm 32 years old, and I work as an interior designer. For the past 7 years, I have been married to Ethan, the man I believed I knew better than anyone in the world. We built a beautiful life together, filled with laughter, shared dreams, and a love that I thought was unshakable. I have always been the type of person who believes in open communication, in honesty above all else. And Ethan? He was the same, or so I thought. But sometimes the people closest to us hold secrets, secrets so deep that when they surface, they have the power to change everything. I never expected that my husband, the man who held my heart so gently, was keeping something from me, something that could shatter the foundation of our marriage. It all started one evening, a perfectly ordinary night. I had just returned home from work, exhausted but content, looking forward to our usual quiet dinner together. Ethan was already in the kitchen, preparing my favorite pasta dish, humming softly to himself. I leaned against the doorway, watching him for a moment, feeling an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. "You're spoiling me again," I teased, stepping closer and wrapping my arms around his waist. He chuckled, turning to kiss my forehead. "You deserve it." His voice was warm, but something felt off. A slight hesitation, a distracted look in his eyes. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone has their moments, right? But then, over the next few weeks, I started noticing small changes. Ethan had always been an open book with me. We shared everything, our thoughts, our worries, our joys. But suddenly, there were moments when he seemed distant, lost in thoughts he wouldn't share. I would find him staring at his phone, his expression unreadable. When I asked what was wrong, he would smile and say, "Nothing, love, just work stress." But I knew him too well. This wasn't just work stress. One evening, as we were watching a movie, I saw him tense when his phone buzzed. He quickly grabbed it, turned the screen away from me, and ignored the call. "Who was that?" I asked casually. "Just a work thing," he said, a little too quickly. And that's when the unease truly set in. Ethan wasn't the type to hide things from me. We never had secrets. At least, I thought we didn't. But this was different. The following days were filled with small moments that chipped away at my trust. Late-night phone calls that he would take outside. Sudden, unexplained absences. The way he avoided my gaze when I asked too many questions. And then, one night, everything changed. I had fallen asleep early, but something woke me. A faint sound coming from Ethan's home office. I got up, my heart pounding, and quietly made my way toward the room. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap I saw him sitting at his desk, his head in his hands. His phone was pressed to his ear. "I know," he was saying, his voice low and strained. "I should have told her, but I can't. Not yet." A pause. "I don't know how she'll react." I stood frozen, my mind racing. Who was he talking to? What was he hiding from me? I wanted to push the door open, demand answers, but something held me back. The fear that whatever I was about to hear would change everything. The next morning, I made up my mind. I needed to know the truth. "Ethan," I said over breakfast, keeping my voice calm, "is there something you're not telling me?" He looked up, startled. What do you mean? You've been acting different lately, distant, taking secret calls, going out without telling me where you're going. I met his gaze. I know something is going on. For a moment, he just stared at me, his jaw tightening. Then, he exhaled and ran a hand through his hair. Sophia, I need to tell you something, but please, just listen before you react. I nodded, my heart pounding. He hesitated, then finally spoke. There's someone from my past, someone I never told you about. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who? A woman, he admitted, his voice quiet. Her name is Claire. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, softly, almost regretfully, made my stomach twist. Who is she? I whispered. Ethan took a deep breath. Before I met you, I was in a serious relationship with her. It ended badly. I thought I had moved on completely, but a few months ago she reached out to me. My breath caught. And you've been talking to her? He nodded. At first, it was just one message, then another. She wanted closure, and I thought I could give her that without hurting you. He swallowed. But then I realized she's sick, Sophia. Terminally ill. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. She doesn't have much time left, he continued. She asked if I could see her, just to talk, to make peace. His voice broke slightly, and I went. I felt my chest tighten. Ethan, why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid you'd think I was betraying you. Afraid you'd misunderstand. But I swear, Sophia, it was never about anything more than giving her the closure she needed. He reached for my hand. I love you. You are my life. I just didn't know how to tell you without making it seem like something it wasn't. I pulled my hand away, my emotions warring inside me. Betrayal isn't just about actions, Ethan. It's about secrecy, too, I whispered. His face fell. I know, and I'm so sorry. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The man I loved, the man I trusted above all else, had been hiding something from me, not out of malice, but out of fear. And yet it still hurt. I stood up, needing space to think. I need time, Ethan. He nodded, his expression full of regret. I understand. As I walked away, my mind was a storm of emotions. Could I forgive him? Could I move past this? I didn't know. I left the kitchen feeling like my whole world had just shifted. Ethan had kept something from me, not because he wanted to hurt me, but because he was afraid of how I would react. But that didn't change the fact that it hurt. I went upstairs to our bedroom and closed the door behind me. My mind was racing, replaying every moment from the past few weeks, every lie of omission, every distant look. I had always trusted Ethan blindly, but now there was doubt. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, my hands trembling slightly. I wasn't the type of person who overreacted. I believed in communication, in understanding before judging. But this felt like a betrayal, even if Ethan swore it wasn't. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I didn't answer. Sophia, Ethan's voice came through gently. Please talk to me. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply before exhaling slowly. I wasn't ready. I need space, Ethan, I finally said. my voice barely above a whisper. A pause. Then, I understand. I heard his footsteps retreating, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt an emotional distance between us that scared me. That night, I barely slept. I kept tossing and turning, thinking about everything he had said. Claire, an ex from his past, a woman he had loved once, a woman who was now dying. A part of me wanted to believe him, to believe that it was just about closure, that he had no lingering feelings for her. But another part of me whispered, what if? What if seeing her again had stirred up old emotions? What if he had second thoughts about our marriage? By morning, exhaustion and frustration had settled deep in my bones. I knew I couldn't keep avoiding this conversation. When I finally stepped out of the bedroom, I found Ethan sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up the moment he heard me, his expression filled with worry and sadness. "Morning," he said cautiously. I nodded, sitting down across from him. "We need to talk." He straightened, giving me his full attention. "I know, and I'll answer anything you want to ask." I folded my arms, staring at him. "Do you still have feelings for her?" His eyes widened. "Number Sophia, I swear." "Then why did you hide it?" I cut in. "Why didn't you just tell me?" He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "Because I knew it would hurt you. Because I knew it would bring up questions like this, and I didn't want to put you through that." I swallowed hard. "But don't you see? Hiding it made it worse. It made me feel like you were sneaking around, like there was something more to it." His face fell. "I know, and I hate that I made you feel that way." Silence stretched between us. "Do you still talk to her?" I asked finally. He hesitated just a second too long. "Sometimes," he admitted. "She texts me occasionally, updates about her condition. I don't always reply right away, but I feel like I can't just ignore her, Sophia." His voice softened. "She's dying." A lump formed in my throat. I wasn't a cruel person. I didn't want to be the kind of wife who forbid her husband from showing compassion. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore how this made me feel. "Do you love me, Ethan?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. His eyes filled with raw emotion. "More than anything in this world." "Then promise me something." "Anything," he said immediately. "From now on, no more secrets. If you talk to her, if you see her again, I need to know. No hiding, no sneaking around." My voice wavered. "I need to trust you again." His face softened, and he reached for my hands, holding them tightly. "I promise. No more secrets." I searched his face, looking for any sign of hesitation, but there was none. Maybe forgiveness wouldn't come instantly. Maybe the trust would take time to rebuild. But as I looked into my husband's eyes, I saw sincerity, regret, and love. And for now, that was enough. I squeezed his hands. "Then let's move forward. Together." Ethan kept his promise. Over the next few days, he was completely open with me. If Claire texted, he told me. If she called, he answered in front of me. If she asked to meet, he let me know. At first, it still hurt. Every time I saw her name on his phone, a part of me tensed. But he never hid anything from me again. He even let me read their messages if I wanted to. One evening, About a week later, Ethan and I were having dinner when he hesitated before speaking. Sophia, he started cautiously. Claire asked if she could see me one last time. I put my fork down, my appetite disappearing. One last time? He nodded. Her condition is getting worse. She's in hospice care now. She said she just wants to say goodbye. I studied him carefully. Do you want to go? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know. A part of me feels like I should, but another part of me doesn't want to hurt you. I swallowed, my emotions in conflict. I hated that this situation even existed. I wished Claire had never contacted him, but at the same time, I couldn't deny the truth. She was dying, and if seeing her one last time would give Ethan peace, could I really stand in his way? I took a deep breath. Then go. He blinked, as if surprised. Are you sure? No, I admitted honestly. But if you feel like you need to see her, then I won't stop you. His eyes softened, and he reached across the table to squeeze my hand. Thank you, Sophia. That means everything to me. The next day, Ethan visited Claire. I tried to stay busy, but my mind kept wandering. I imagined them talking, laughing, reminiscing about the past. And no matter how much I told myself it didn't matter, it did. When Ethan finally came home, I was sitting on the couch, pretending to read a book. He sat down beside me, silent for a moment. How was it? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. He exhaled slowly. Emotional. I looked at him, studying his face. Did she say anything important? He hesitated. She said she was sorry for everything that happened in the past, for reaching out to me and causing problems in our marriage. She said she just didn't want to leave this world with regrets. I nodded slowly, processing his words. And you? Do you feel better after seeing her? He met my gaze, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. I do, but I also realized something. What? He reached for my hands, holding them tightly. That my past doesn't matter anymore, that you're my present, my future, and I never want anything to come between us again. Tears pricked my eyes, and I let out a shaky breath. I don't either. He leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. I love you, Sophia, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that to you. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. Maybe the wound wasn't completely healed yet, but love, trust, and forgiveness would help us get there. Ethan kept his promise. After his visit to Claire, something shifted between us. The emotional distance that had crept into our marriage slowly began to fade. He was more present, more affectionate, and more open than ever before. And even though I still struggled with the lingering emotions, I knew he was trying. A few weeks passed, and life settled into a sense of normalcy again. Until one evening, while we were watching a movie together, Ethan's phone vibrated. He picked it up, and I saw the hesitation in his expression. Who is it? I asked softly. He looked at me, conflicted. Claire's sister. I knew what that meant before he even said it. Sophia. His voice was gentle, cautious. She's gone. I swallowed hard. A part of me had expected this moment, but hearing it still felt like a weight pressing on my chest. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. I thought I'd be prepared for this, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. But it still feels surreal. I hesitated, then reached for his hand, squeezing it. It's okay to be sad, Ethan. He looked at me, his eyes filled with something unreadable. Are you sure you're okay with this? With me feeling this way? I took a deep breath. Ethan, I'm not going to pretend this situation has been easy for me. But I also know that losing someone from your past doesn't mean you love me any less. And I don't want you to feel like you have to hide your grief from me. His shoulders relaxed slightly, and he gave me a small, grateful smile. I don't deserve you. I smiled back, though my heart still felt heavy. You do, and I need you to believe that. He nodded, then pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were truly on the same page again. A few days later, Ethan attended Claire's funeral. I had debated going with him, but in the end, I felt like it wasn't my place. This was a chapter from his past that needed to be closed in a way that only he could. So instead, I stayed home, giving him space to say goodbye. When he returned later that evening, he looked exhausted, both physically and emotionally. He walked straight over to me and wrapped his arms around me, burying his face in my neck. She's really gone, he whispered. I held him close, rubbing his back gently. I know. We stood there for a long time, just holding each other in silence. And I realized something in that moment. Love isn't just about passion or romance. It's about being there for each other, even when things are complicated. It's about choosing each other over and over again. And as Ethan looked at me with gratitude, with love, with relief that I was still by his side, I knew that we would be okay. Because in the end, love and truth had won.